I'm curious also about the fact that you're so close to Russia. When you were in Harbin or outside of Harbin in Heilongjiang, what were the buildings like? Were they more traditionally kind of Chinese, or was there like a Russian influence in just like your environment?
There are a few streets,
Okay.
kind of like Russian style building, but the others normally is like traditional Chinese style.
Traditional Chinese style, okay. Is there a sense at all of whether it's like, I'm not sure it would be Russian people walking around, but a feeling of we're closer to Russia, so there's some Russian culture and Russian influence?
Yes, especially in Harbin.
Okay.
There's a typical ice cream from Russia, and then sell really well in Harbin. And there are a lot of Russian people that speak fluent in Mandarin.
Interesting. Okay.
But especially in Heilongjiang's accent.
And are those Russian people that, like, they are Chinese in the sense that they have a Chinese passport and they live in China? Or is it Russian people who come over the border and they're sort of visiting or they're working there, but they're Russian people? And then, yeah.
Yeah, I met a guy, he's kind of like living on the border of Russia and China. He just working back and forth. I don't know what passport he has, but he speaks really well Chinese.
I'm curious about that because I have heard that there are very small numbers of Russian people, but I'm never quite sure if it's people who just work in either country or if it's like those people are technically Chinese citizens, but they're ethnic Russian people, right?
I think so.
Okay,
Right.
Interesting. Yeah. And also, I guess I always forget too, there's always the idea in Russia of a lot of people who are physically, they're East Asian, but they're Russian citizens versus like European looking Russian people.
Right. Because when I was little, I never saw any like European faces in Heilongjiang.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was growing up, when I go to Harbin, there are a lot of Russian people over there.
Because I know that, the relationship between the countries Russia and China it's had its ups and downs over time, periods where they're close, then they didn't like each other, then they're kind of close again, and, all of that kind of stuff.
Yes, because they're, effect most in music.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Some of those people, like the older people, they love to listen Russian music. And there are a lot of Russian music schools in Heilongjiang, but taught by Chinese people.
That's actually a question, yeah. Arts and culture and music and all of that kind of stuff. What is that? I mean, you kind of answered the question a little bit, but like, what does that look like in Heilongjiang compared to other parts of China?
I think compared to south of China, the north of China, they love to listen Russian music.
I mean, it could be a range, but is that anywhere from like traditional Russian music, but also like Russian pop music? Or is it?
I would say traditional one.
Traditional Russian music, okay. With like the, I'm trying to remember the instruments here, but like the balalaika, I think it's called, which is like the really big, like stringed kind of guitar type.
I think so, because even today, my neighbor, I live in Arcadia.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
My neighbor, he's a Chinese, and he was in the car listening Russian traditional music.
Interesting,
yeah. Saying that.
Yeah. Well, I will say, and I've said it before, I've in the last few years really started to listen to a lot of traditional music from different parts of the world, and I really love it actually. And there's a lot of great music from China and a lot of great music from Russia that I've been listening to. Also, music from parts of Africa and different parts of Europe and South Asia. So I'm always a big fan if people are listening to just traditional music from different parts of the world and different cultures. And in a couple examples, I'm thinking of northern China, Mongolia. There are a couple groups that are doing kind of the same thing. They're doing like Mongolian heavy metal folk crossover music.
Right.
Is there any of that in Heilongjiang that you're aware of, or not so much?
Not so much, but I know there are a lot of Mongolia bands.
Yeah, okay.
They are very popular in Europe
Yes, yes, they are. They are. They're getting. The Who is one band in particular. Yeah, I do know the Who. There was a smaller group called Tenger Cavalry that my friend introduced me to a few years ago. I think they're more niche, and I think there's some Russian guys and a couple. I think either Mongolian or Northern Chinese. But yeah, the Who is getting some serious traction. I think in even in the States too. Right. Like some of their music videos are really blowing up on YouTube. But again, I don't know if it's like a cold weather climate or something, but at least that I would say it seems to be a stereotype of like people who live in these colder places, both in East Asia, but also in Europe and the US, they tend to be more into like this type of heavy metal.
Right.
Mixed with often like traditional folk elements.
I think one of the reasons because of geography and also the climate. Because the funny thing is I went to a concert a few days ago and I was filming a rock band. There's a guy asking me, "Oh, you're from China? Like, is there really a punk or rock band in China?" You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I was like, yes, there are some great artists, but they can't do like very well great music under that environmental conditions.
You mentioned Russian folk music. We talked about heavy metal. Is there sort of a rock or like punk rock scene at all up in if it's not Heilongjiang, but like around the northern areas of China at all, or not so much?
Or back in '90s, there are some great band.
Okay.
Nowadays, I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah. Are most people, is it just like mainstream pop music?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, none of that there's nothing wrong with a certain amount of mainstream pop music, but when it's the only thing going, that's where I get kind of a little sad.
It's sad.
Yes. And I don't know. I will say one